the tech itself is not the all of the story, right? You have to be able to communicate, okay, how are you thinking about value capture for this technology, right? Who do you think are the buyers for this technology? And so that's why sometimes we like to see teams augment themselves, and not only a technical co-founder, but also more of like the business GTM co-founder. And I think that makes them a little bit more well-rounded and effective over time.
Welcome to The Edge of Show, your gateway to the Web3 revolution. We explore the cutting edge of blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, ordinals, DeFi, gaming, and entertainment, plus how AI is reshaping our digital future. Join us as we bring you visionaries and disruptors pushing boundaries in this digital renaissance. This show is for the dreamers, disruptors, and doers that are pumped about where innovation meets culture. This is where the future begins.
All right, welcome to The Edge of Show. I'm your host, Richard Carthon, and I'm here with my co-host, Joshua Krieger. We feature a variety of top-notch guests and other hosts as well. It's another production of The Edge of Company, a quickly growing media ecosystem empowering the pioneers of Web3 tech and culture. It is responsible for other groundbreaking endeavors like the Outer Edge Innovation Festival in LA and Riyadh.
Today's show features Jonathan King, aka JK, a principal investor at Coinbase Ventures, where he's helping shape the future of Web3 by backing the builders of the next generation infrastructure and developer tools. With over a decade of experience across product engineering, strategy, and marketing, JK now leads Coinbase charge in the convergence of crypto and AI, including authoring their flagship thesis on the space. He's got a front row seat to where the tech is heading, and he's here to break it all down for us. Coinbase is one of the world's leading cryptocurrency platforms, known for making crypto accessible to the mainstream while also backing innovations through Coinbase Ventures, as if all of you didn't already know that. And from retail trading to institutional custody to supporting the Web3 builder ecosystem, Coinbase plays a key role in shaping the crypto economy infrastructure. So, JK, it's great to have you on the show, and someone with my same initials. So there we go.
Yes, good to see you again, Josh, and thanks for having me, guys.
So, funny backstory, one of my other business partners in this venture and previous also has the initials JK. So at one point, we had like some kind of small company called JK Squared. So, yeah, good initials, I have to say.
See, I went to JK because when the first job I had out of undergrad, there was like multiple Jonathans. And so I was like, I needed to differentiate myself. And now it sounded like I need to do it again. So we'll see what I come up with next.
We've had our own sort of name challenges. At one point, we had a lot of Joshes in the company, which got really confusing. So I feel you there. But, look, it's such a thrill to have you on the show and to break down what's going on with Coinbase Ventures. You guys have been prolific in this space. Can you give us a little bit of the backstory and the history of how things got going and what your thesis has been? Maybe touch on how it's evolving.
Coinbase Ventures was founded back in 2018. It actually started from a blog post that was written by our COO, Emily Choi, in which, she announced our mandate to go invest into very exceptional founders that essentially align with Coinbase's mission to increase economic freedom. And now, building the on-chain economy. So back then, 2018, there wasn't a dedicated team. It was a very small, lean operation. And essentially, we were like kind of indexing across the top founders in the space at the time, which was very few. And like the ultimate goal is like, how do we grow the pie? How do we kind of grow the ecosystem? Coinbase shouldn't be the only large crypto company based in the US that's kind of building this kind of on-chain economy. And so that's what we kind of optimize for. Fast forward to 2020, as you guys may recall, with the emergence of different like DeFi protocols like Uniswap and other kind of smart contract applications, we wanted to kind of build on some of like those early successes. And so hired a dedicated team and started writing somewhat like larger checks, still with an ecosystem index type of approach in terms of the investments, but also kind of like a sleeve for very thesis driven, higher conviction bets. And then going into 2023 to now, full fully dedicated team. And what we're doing now is kind of like taking an approach where we're doubling down into early stage. So pre-seed through Series A is simply our sweet spot. Very thesis driven. So like doing things around like, let's say crypto AI, or having a point of view on things related to stable coins and payments. And we're also, carved out with the launch of Base, we carved out the Base Ecosystem Fund. And so the Base Ecosystem Fund, we're investing into pre-seed and seed builders on top of Base. And so all of that across that journey since the initial founding, we so far have about 500 plus investments across the, kind of crypto and on-chain landscape. And we're looking forward to kind of continuing that journey ahead.
Just a quick follow-up question there, and then I know Richard wanted to get into some of the different areas. I was just curious, with Coinbase Ventures, obviously there's a close connection to Coinbase. Are the investment decisions entirely independent, or does there have to be some sort of strategic value for Coinbase in terms of the projects that you decide to support?
Yeah, great question. So it's funny, it's very topical. So last week I was actually doing a guest lecture at Georgia Tech about, corporate venture capital. And so typically when you think about like corporate venture capital, there's like three different models. There's like the fully strategic, where there has to be some type of attached partnership distribution angle in order to move forward that investment. You have some corporate VCs that are just purely financial. They act like more like a traditional VC, and they're just optimizing for financial returns. And then you have like a hybrid mixture of the two. And so I would say like Coinbase Ventures falls more on the hybrid approach. So majority of like our core early stage investments, they're driven by, like I said, very thesis driven, independent investment thinking. And then as we get into more later stage investments, that's where we see, working very close with like our corp dev team on like those strategic opportunities where there is some type of partnership, distribution, or a much broader alliance coming into play. So yeah, I kind of, I like the model. It gives us, like a lot of flexibility to go broad and like look at various different opportunities with the like kind of mandate to, yes, we want to drive a financial return, but if there's an opportunity where we can be strategic and accelerate Coinbase's product roadmap or provide some value to that company, we have the flexibility to do that as well.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And you broke down a couple of different things that Coinbase Ventures has gone to focus on since 2018, which, coming in 18, you just came off of the ICO boom to then what has gone into, DeFi summer and into several other themes that I've come across. But right now, one of the biggest players in the space is convergence of crypto and AI with, crypto with AI agents and several other things that have come out. So for Coinbase Ventures, like what has been some of the focus around that specific area?
Yeah, so we actually published a thesis last September about like the intersection of crypto AI. And like I would say, like our main belief is that when you take like blockchains, decentralized technology, and combine that with AI's ability to, let's say, mimic human reasoning as well as learn from data, that's going to be transformative to how humans and machines interact within the digital economy. And so we kind of like have three core beliefs that was like really underpinning that thesis. One is like, okay, to your point, AI agents, right? So we think AI agents operating on top of crypto rails, so let's say stable coins and self-custody wallets, they're going to be the primary drivers of economic activity, both on and off chain over the long term. We think with the rise of things like Chat GPT, and we're starting to see this today within crypto, let's say like the equivalent would be like a Venice AI, for example, where generative AI and natural language will become like the primary interaction modality for kind of crypto applications. And then lastly, I think like probably the area that I'm very excited about is, is you look at like in the Web 2 space and developers around like these kind of software developer agents, for example, the Devins, the Cursors, the Replets of the world. At some point, we're going to see like AI is going to create the majority of source code. And eventually that's going to become like the majority of smart contract code. And so I think like when that happens, that really leads to like this Cambrian explosion of like on-chain apps and experiences that haven't even been conceived of. So very exciting. This is like the best time that we feel like to kind of invest in the space. It's still very early. It's very nascent. Some things feel very experimental, but we're overall like kind of like excited about the momentum that we're seeing from builders at the intersection of crypto and AI.
Very cool. Is there anything about AI projects that you're just like too vanilla, not scalable, not exciting, like just to sort of cover the flip side of the types of things that are coming out that feel a little bit too copy paste in your mind?
Yeah, so I think like early on, probably back in 2023, when we were initially seeing a lot of the projects building within the crypto AI space, things around like just saying, okay, well, we're going to like decentralize every aspect of the AI stack, right? And like our belief is that, you don't necessarily need crypto for every layer or every challenge of like the existing AI stack, right? You use crypto for what it's good for: verifiability, transparency, resistance, decentralization, etc. And then AI, on the other hand, could bring more advanced capabilities to on-chain applications. So we started to think about, I think like some of the things was like very early on, like decentralized computing, right? I think like using crypto economic incentives for supply, like infusing supply side of GPUs, for example, right? Well, that's a great, but again, the question becomes, well, when does the demand actually materialize? And I think fast forward to now, we're now starting to see that demand, and some of these companies, like decentralized compute providers, that are able to compete with some of the hyperscalers, but it's still like relatively early. So that's how I've been thinking about it. Like, we don't necessarily need to embed crypto into every aspect of the AI stack, but we should kind of lean into what crypto is strong for, and also on the vice versa, like leveraging AI to augment crypto as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it kind of goes into my next question, and where I think we spend a little bit more time on this, because one of the things that I've been asked even more frequently is like, okay, you have the rise of like ChatGPT, DeepSeek, all of these other players that are out here. What is the purpose of the intersection of AI and blockchain, and why would that be better than one of these other already existing competitors that are out there? And where do you see the opportunity for these startups who are building and trying to blend the two together, so it's more real world instead of just like all this and bringing things on chain?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think, like going back to the thesis, how you kind of see like this intersection is really in like two segments. One, I would say, is what you're referring to as more decentralized AI, right? So it's like, how do you take the AI stack and, can you kind of augment it to inherit like the properties of modern like peer-to-peer blockchain networks? So again, censorship resistance, verifiability, transparency, privacy, even. So if I use your example like Chat GPT or like the emergence of DeepSeek, DeepSeek, that was like a crazy moment over the last couple of weeks. Like this very advanced, powerful model. Like there was questions about how much did it cost to like train that model, etc. But one of the issues with DeepSeek is like when you asked it certain questions, some of those responses that you received from DeepSeek were actually censored, right? Or there were concerns about that data flowing back to like the operating company of DeepSeek. And so what I was impressed by was like, if you look at like some of the alternative like kind of chat applications that are being built on top of crypto rails, so Venice AI, what Eric Voorhees is developing, he was able to embed like the same DeepSeek model, but it's completely private. Like any type of input that you put into like that chatbot, that stays locally on your machine, right? It never goes off to some kind of third party server. It was completely kind of censorship resistant, so you got real responsive. You did a side by side comparison of like certain questions between the vanilla DeepSeek versus the model being uploaded to Venice. You got a very different response. And so I think that's where, again, going back to my point, is like, let's lean into like the attributes of crypto that makes it very effective, at least as we're thinking about decentralizing the AI stack. And then on the other end, which we can get into, of course, is really around the emergence of on-chain AI and like agents starting to kind of transact, like using like kind of crypto economic rails, wallets, using things around stable coins, et cetera. And that's probably the area I'm probably most excited about as we kind of go into this next phase of like the crypto AI intersection.
Yeah, just to follow on that, I'm excited about that too, where I think, so just to speak to that for people who aren't necessarily as deep into this like crypto meets AI side, basically imagine going into like a chatbot and being like, hey, I have Bitcoin and ultimately I'm trying to buy this like Solana meme coin, help me get it. And in the background, it is doing all the AI agents are doing all the extra steps that makes crypto as hard as and challenging as it is for most people to be in here to do everything so that the end result is there. and having these models that can do it pretty seamlessly. So it's almost like, in my head, the way I try to explain it is like, imagine AI meets DeFi meets wallets. It just makes it super simple. So that's kind of how I kind of approach explaining it.
Yeah, I mean that's you're spot on. I mean, I like to me it's like AI agents kind of transacting on chain. It's like a next level of automation, essentially. Like I've been kind of like I'm writing a new piece specifically on like the emergence of on-chain AI. And one of the things I always liken it to is like this idea of like on-chain betterment, right? Or on-chain wealth front, where the robo advisor is actually an agent on the back end. And so as a user, right, I'm going to trust this agent with some type of economic value. Let's say if I'm depositing USDC, and that agent's objective function is just to go, source the best, sources of yield on chain, right? I want you to grow this pie. I want you to execute trades on my behalf, right? I want to be able to say, like, type into a chat box, swap X for Y. And to your point, like an agent executes that. And so like we kind of enter in this phase where, not only are we abstracting like some of the complexities of crypto, but we're also like reducing the cognitive load to be able to effectively transact within crypto by leveraging some of like these new AI primitives.
Let's take a pause to shout out one of our favorite partners. For tech innovators facing legal challenges, Zuba Lawler is your go-to law firm. They focus on understanding your technology and business model before addressing legal requirements. Specializing in blockchain, AI, VR, AR, quantum computing, and more, Zuba Lawler offers expert guidance in capital raising, IP transactions, M&A, litigation, and compliance. Visit zuberlawler.com, that's ZUBERLAWLER.com, for cutting-edge legal solutions. So Jonathan, you talked a lot about the different areas that you guys look at, from AI to other sort of on-chain activities. I would love to know some of the projects that you all have backed and that have recently launched that we should keep our eyes out for.
Yeah, great question. So, like I mentioned before, like, we kind of think about like this crypto AI stack into two segments, but, two related interconnected segments. So, like decentralized AI, which is more so decentralizing the AI stack, right? Verifiability, censorship, resistance, transparency, et cetera. And then on-chain AI is like kind of bringing AI into crypto. So, on the decentralized AI side, some of the projects that we backed is one, Bana network. And so, the way Bana network works, they essentially are helping users to aggregate their own personal private data to train AI models. And so what happens is that, as some of these AI models are used, then there's attribution back to the user, right? And so you can imagine if like an AI model becomes really successful, that creates a really nice flywheel effect and incentive for the users, right? So users are now incentivized to provide their data in training AI models. I think that one is really interesting, and they're live. They actually just launched a new foundational model called Collective One. That's essentially the first kind of user-owned foundational model, right? It has trained on 7 billion parameters. 1 million users uploaded their data into that model. Their goal is to get to 100 million users over time. So that's one to watch. Another one, I think, you had them on the podcast recently. It's Sapien and Rowan, and we think highly of them and what they're doing, right? Again, this whole like incentive structure to hire more data labelers, right, in order to be able to fine tune and ultimately normalize data so that way it can be trained. As we kind of move up like the stack into more like the on-chain AI and like application side, I think one of the trends that we've been seeing is like existing portfolio companies that we have invested into the past are now kind of moving more into the AI space and kind of incorporating AI mechanisms into their protocols. And so one of our portfolio companies, Moonwell, led by Luke Youngblood, he developed this agent called Mari, and what that agent is doing is just helping users within the Moonwell front end find the best sources of yield. It's a borrow lend protocol, so we think that that's interesting. And there's a couple of more that are in the queue that gets more into the lanes of natural language interfaces for transacting on chain, or agent powered vaults, for example. So it's pretty exciting stuff. And I think those are the things that I'm starting to see that's very novel. Again, a lot of the projects that have launched has been more on like the infrastructure side, but there are some promising green shoots that should be released over the next kind of like 3 to 6 months that pushes more into like that on-chain AI application vertical.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Really enjoyed our conversation with Sapien. I'm glad you gave them a shout out. I think what they're doing is really exciting in terms of this ability to reward on-chain participation in creating knowledge in a meaningful way for real expertise. So what I've seen personally is these more niche use cases become where it's at. I heard recently about a teenager that created an AI application where you can sort of take a picture of your plate of food and it had all the macros and calories estimated for you and everything like that. Not a blockchain use case, but it's a good example of sort of applying AI in a very specific way to solve a very big pain point in a way that wasn't possible before. So I think there's infinite possibilities for doing that on chain with the combination of blockchain and AI.
Yeah, and I also, I guess to add on to that, I also think like, agents and agentic commerce, right? As the agents being able to better transact with humans or better transact with other agents. One of the things that, I'm very excited about is like, Coinbase, like our Coinbase developer platform team, they have been building towards this agent kit offering, which is now live, which essentially equips any agent with a self-custodial wallet, right? So that way wallets can begin those agents can begin accepting USDC and they can begin executing transactions on chain. And so that's like so a promising area, right? If you think about commerce today, very manual, it has to be intent driven. You have to know what you're looking for. To now you kind of move into the space where it's like very hyper personalized and kind of on demand, and that will be powered by agents. And so that's an area I think that's going to be really exciting, and that infrastructure, like I mentioned, is being built out today to facilitate this new wave of commerce.
Yeah, I love that. But I think there's a broader conversation here around sort of mindset when it comes specifically to investing in AI. So many moving parts, things, trends come and go really quickly. We saw DeepSeek was like an aha moment for us that,
Mhm.
today's filet mignon, maybe tomorrow's chopped liver, right? So I guess like how do you sort of look at and plus like let's not forget the regulatory ambiguity around AI and blockchain combined together.
Yeah.
It gets pretty muddy pretty quickly. How do you sort of invest in that landscape? Like how do you decide what sort of has enough meat on the bones to sort of get through that regulatory sort of ambiguity?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things there, right, in terms of how we think about like our mindset as we're investing into this space. So I would say more broadly, it's like our general approach is really to kind of, evaluate each investment based on its merits, taking like a first principles thinking. So we're looking at things around like founder, kind of market fit. So one of the things that I'm always like impressed upon like founders as I'm talking to them, especially if they're building at the intersection of crypto AI, is like I want to see a crypto native and AI native founding team. Like that is like the ideal skill set, especially if you're like, okay, if you're building like a decentralized AI stack, do you understand model architectures? Do you understand like compute infrastructure? And then how do you bring in someone that has more of like the crypto skill set to kind of think about like what the economic incentive should be? So that's like probably I would say the first layer of like what we're assessing. The next is just kind of thinking about the product a little bit more holistically. And going back to like my earlier comments about decentralized computing, right? So if you look at a lot of the projects, they were doing really well in terms of being able to incentivize the supply. But at what point do we start seeing the demand, right? And so that's where we started to think about, okay, what does the long-term like growth and demand potential look like for the specific opportunity? And then everything else becomes like, what if you ship? Like, you show me the product, let me play around with it, even if it's like just a prototype. I want to kind of like get in and like really test like some of the core assumptions. So that's more generally, I would say, like the framework that we apply across the founders. Now, as it relates to the regulatory like aspect, you're right. Like that's a risk that we readily call out, that we do need like regulatory clarity. And we think that the momentum is there, right? Like, the founders essentially, they want to understand what are the rules of the road, right? They don't want to necessarily like encounter roadblocks. And I think that's what we've had for such a long time. But I think we're more so excited and optimistic about the momentum that we're seeing across both like the pro crypto as well as like kind of pro AI policies. And I think that's going to be like a net positive for founders building in this space long term.
I agree. You brought up a point that really went into the founding team, right? And making sure that they're both crypto native and that they were also AI native. But I want to dive into that a little bit more, but I have to do it by taking first a step back and like speaking directly to you, JK, because you come from a very impressive background going through product engineering strategy and now investing. So with you like having worn so many hats, how's it helped shape your perspective on what makes like a great founder and a great team? And what are some of those common blind spots that you see from technical founders as they go into the world of either trying to raise investment or building out a product?
Well, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think like, you're right. So I have had several roles, in my previous background, cross product, engineering, and, later on was like more corporate strategy type of work. I'd say like the common thread across like my background is that I always sought out like the whiteboard or greenfield opportunities where it was like time to build something completely net new. It was emerging technology. It was a foreign concept. It was something that I had to do a lot of explaining myself, like understanding the narrative and being able to effectively communicate that value prop to my stakeholders. And I always worked in, industries where, technology adoption was a laggard, right? Like I came from the energy industry, went into oil and gas construction, which is an even larger lagger when it comes to technology adoption. So, as a kind of product operator, not only was it, I had to focus on just like the execution side of things, but I also had to focus on, thinking about how do I effectively communicate this value prop to my audience, right? Like what are the things, the key attributes of my message that is going to resonate with them, right? To effectively convert them into buyers. And so those are the things that I kind of look for in founders. Yes, there's a level of like hustle and grit that I think is like absolutely critical. But I think for some of the best founders, not only are they able to effectively execute and go from 0 to 1, but some of the best founders I know, like they're able to also communicate the story. They're able to tell the narrative. They're able to get like buy-in from the users that they want to appeal to. And so those founders typically have like a view of like what's the long-term North Star, right? Am I delivering value? Will customers actually buy in and actually pay for this service that I'm offering? If not, how do I effectively iterate very quickly? And while they're kind of being visionary and thinking long term, they're still kind of like putting together like those pragmatic steps in order to get to that end state vision. And so those are the things that I typically look for in founders, like given my background. In terms of some of the pitfalls, I think you kind of mentioned it, right? Sometimes I see like the technical co-founders. Although I love diving into the tech, I'm still a product guy at heart. But the tech is, the tech itself is not the all of the story, right? You have to be able to communicate, okay, how are you thinking about value capture for this technology, right? Who do you think are the buyers for this technology? And so that's why sometimes we like to see teams augment themselves, and not only a technical co-founder, but also more of like the business GTM co-founder. And I think that makes them a little bit more well-rounded and effective over time.
No, I can resonate with a lot of that, and don't envy your job completely. Though it is pretty cool to be able to sort of make such a big impact in the industry with the broad nature of what you guys do. And we talked a little bit. Well, we talked a lot about AI in that intersection, but there's a lot of other aspects of our industry that there's actually like a pretty sustainable debate about whether or not there's growth or there's shrinkage, right? Like metaverse, gaming, the evolution of the Bitcoin ecosystem, regulated products, real world assets, the future of stablecoins you mentioned a little bit earlier. These are some of the trends that are sort of out there in the ether, but there's not necessarily one point of view around conviction that this makes sense. Like we've had with the age of DeFi and in previous years where it was all about gaming. What are your thoughts on these other areas at the current moment? Are there any that you're more bullish on, more bearish on among the ones I mentioned?
Yeah, I think like among the ones that you mentioned, my view is like, since like I would say over the last couple of years, one thing I appreciate about crypto is that, we have begun to evolve beyond just like the speculative side of the industry and focusing more on like utility, right? And building out the applications. And that's mainly because the infrastructure has advanced to the point where we can build out some really amazing like applications on chain. So like for us, I think like the areas that, in addition to crypto AI, stablecoins and payments is continues to be top of mind, right? Like not only for Coinbase Ventures, but Coinbase more broadly, right? We need to get payments down to 1 second, 1 cent, and allow anyone to be able to transact, right? And kind of transact across borders. The other area that we've been looking into is mainly things around like the next frontier of DeFi. And so this is what I call like the more retail friendly DeFi applications. They're mobile friendly. They look like the Betterment Wealthfront UX in the front, but powered by the Morpho or Moonwell vaults on the back end, right? And kind of giving people exposure to those savings and like yield generation opportunities. And then I would say the fourth category is just really like consumer apps in general. And so to your point, I mean, one of the biggest success cases that we've seen happen over the course of last year, and that was Polymarket, right? And like the rise of prediction market, and even post election, like their volumes are still up and trending well. It's like people are placing wagers on like the sports markets today. So I think we're seeing like some positive green shoots, but so like my I guess like advice would be to founders like continue to focus on the utility side of crypto and really pushing the boundaries of what can be accomplished on chain, given like the maturity of the infrastructure that's now available.
Definitely. And I think you put a ton of really good trends to keep in mind, and for everyone listening, go back and think about like how can you continue to evolve what you're working on more in that direction and to get in front of it. But with that in mind, Coinbase Ventures has been working on quite a few different things right now, and I know you have some pretty cool, exciting projects and collaborations you've been cooking up. What's some of the ones that you can either share or that you have on your radar that you're able to share with us today?
Yeah, I think like the most recent one is like one of the things that, another trend that we saw evolve is like really like the new fundraising models for on-chain startups. So this is what I'm referring to, like the platforms like an Echo or Legion, which are built entirely on-chain and allow, like on the Echo side, they allow KYC accredited investors to participate. You connect your wallet, is built on top of Base, and you can get access to some of these like more crypto forward projects. And so one of those recent things that we announced is that through our Base ecosystem fund, we launched a Base ecosystem group on Echo. So first of its kind, and essentially what we're doing is now giving another opportunity for Base ecosystem fund founders within our portfolio to have additional avenues for raising capital, right? And primarily raising capital for the community. We are democratizing access to our pipeline, making it available to the broader community to invest on the same terms that was presented to us. And so I think it's just a really exciting like kind of like opportunity going forward, right? Especially as we think about like, again, applications coming on chain and getting very creative in terms of how do we fund the next generation of on-chain startups.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I think that's true community building, right? Like we have we've had like this fairly archaic hierarchy model to investing in our space where the big guys get the lion's share and everyone else sort of gets whatever's left over, if there's anything left over, and that's actually the legacy of an industry that's all about egalitarianism. So I love that you guys are opening those channels up to the community. So that's really awesome. We're gonna sort of move to another segment, get to know you better, but let's fast forward 5 years ahead. You're sort of a thinker, writer in this space. What's one bold prediction you have for the crypto AI space that might sound crazy today, but you think might have a real shot of coming true?
Ooh.
It's like they're coming true.
Josh, I'm an optimist, man. So I have a lot of predictions that I hope come true. But I think like the thing that I've been really leaning into again, and it's going back to like the AI agent trend. I think like in the next 5 years, everyone transacting in crypto will have their own personal AI agent. And this AI agent will be able to understand all of your prior transaction history, is going to be understand like the protocols that you've interacted with, right? It's going to understand like the tokens that you've held. You're going to be able to chat with it and ask it questions. And this thing is going to do unimaginable like kind of things on chain on your behalf, right? And I think like that's like the state that we're entering to. It's like hyper personalized agentic experiences in a sense. And so that's probably the area that I've been leaning into. Right now we're just in the early innings of like agents that's just like, okay, there's just like pure trades or pure research analysts. But I think like over time, as agents begin ingesting some of like actual user owned data, that's what's going to unlock like those next level of like agentic experiences. And that's something I'm like super excited about over the long term.
Nice. That sounds pretty exciting to me too. And yeah, really appreciate all your insights on the space, where it's going, shedding some light on how Coinbase Ventures works and opportunities there. Our next segment is sort of a fun shout out area where we give you a chance to sort of illuminate someone maybe in your organization, your world, that doesn't always get as much of the limelight as they should. Who comes to mind, or that you just appreciate a lot for what they bring to the table?
Yeah, I think, as much as I talk about like Coinbase Ventures and like, the number of investments that we have, like I said, we have like this 500 plus portfolio. I want to give like a shout out to our portfolio operations team, right? Like, yes, we're myself, the investment team, we're up front. We are, kind of making the deals and getting to know the founders, but, they are managing like some of the outcomes for those founders, and they do it effectively well, right? 500 plus portfolio companies, a team of two. So that's who I would say, like, I want to make sure that they get, well appreciated for all of the efforts that they're extending to make like our org a success.
Thanks for the shout out. That was great. So our last segment of the day is going to be Edge Quick Hitters. You're used to putting founders on the spot, so we're going to put you on the spot. I'm sure you'll be fine. So Edge Quick Hitters are a fun, quick way to get to know you a little bit better. They're 10 questions. We're looking for just a single, short, or few word response, but feel free to expand if you get the urge. You up for it?
Let's do it.
Hey listeners, are you ready to amplify your voice in the digital world? Introducing .podcast domains, your gateway to the future of online identity. Whether you're a creator, a company, or just someone with big ideas, .podcast is for you. Own your unique digital identity, connect securely, and explore hundreds of apps with no renewal fees. Don't wait for someone else to claim your name. Secure your .podcast domain today and be part of the next generation of content creation. Visit get.unstoppabledomains.com/podcast to get started. Again, that's get.unstoppabledomains.com/podcast. Your voice, your rules, your identity.
All right. Question 1. What is the first thing you remember ever purchasing in your life?
Probably with sneakers. I was a big sneakerhead growing up. So I think when I got my first job at like age 15, I was actually working at a shoe store. It was Famous Footwear. And so yeah, the first purchase that I made when I got my first paycheck was a pair of sneakers.
Nice. One of my first jobs was actually a furniture store. So, but learning how to sell anything is good practice for life, right? What is the first thing you remember ever selling in your life?
Oh, easy. I was a gamer, so trying to negotiate to reselling my old used games to GameStop. If anyone recalls how that used to go, so that's where I learned like a little bit of the negotiation skills to try to maximize my take home earnings. Wasn't as successful, but yeah, that was like my first instance of selling something.
Yeah, it's amazing how you could
They
get
were
a brand new $50 game and then they try to buy it back for $5. Just
Next
incredible.
day, next
Next,
day, it's ridiculous.
yeah, so bad. Well, what is one of the most recent things that you purchased?
Ooh, most recent thing. Actually, yeah, so right before Christmas, I'm a watch guy. And I love like collecting watches. And so I was if you've ever seen like the Rolex Batman, it's like this nice kind of black and blue color. I waited for it to buy that watch for about 3 years. I've been on the list for about 3 years, and I got the opportunity to purchase it just before Christmas. So it was a very special kind of purchase for me.
Nice. Oh yeah, I'm sure anyone who's sees and recognizes it's gonna know that's a very special one. So congrats on that one. What is one of the most recent things that you have sold?
Um, I don't know if like I've sold anything major I mean, I guess like 2 years ago we sold our home, like when we used to live in Pearland in Texas. So in Houston, a city we were just talking about that in the city of Houston. So we moved back to Atlanta back in 2019 and kind of rented our house out for a few years, and then yeah, we sold our that was our first home we ever bought, and we sold it 2 years ago.
Congrats.
nice. And what is your most prized possession?
Oh, I guess like life, good health. I'm generally like an optimistic, guy. I would say like my wife, but I don't possess my wife, but that she is, I guess, higher in the priority of things that I value. But yeah, I would say like just life and good health, good energy, and to be in the seat that I'm in.
Yeah, happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah.
Um, no, I'm definitely on a major health kick lately. And yeah, I just realized like life can beat you down. You got to take care of yourself, you know? So right on there. And if you could buy anything in the world, digital, physical, service, experience is currently for sale, what would it be?
Oh, so I guess like my wife and I, we both love to travel. So, and last year we had the chance to go to Lake Como in Italy, and I was like, for the first time, like I felt like if I ever wanted to move somewhere, like that would be the place. And so I would go buy a villa in Lake Como, like if I could relocate there, and especially if there ever was like a crypto scene in Lake Como, there isn't. Trust me, I asked, but yeah, that would be the most ideal thing. We would love to live abroad.
You know, you could start the trend for sure.
Go be a trendsetter. Awesome. Um, if you could pass on one of your personality traits to the next generation, what would it be?
Um, Positive energy. Best advice I ever gotten in my career is just don't be a jerk to people. And if someone opens the door for you, leave it open for the next person to follow you in. So like mentorship, giving back, like those are the traits that I would pass on for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. It's always incredible when you can have someone help you get to where you're trying to go, and there's nothing more beautiful than bringing someone else up with you
Mhm.
and keep the trend going. On the flip side, if you could eliminate one of your personality traits for the next generation, what would it be?
Oh, um, I was just talking to my comms person about this, is that my anxiety and being like wanting everything to be perfect and just do everything so exceptionally well, like that type A. It's just probably like just having a balanced view, right? And things will be okay, living a little bit more in the present, not always just so focused on like the future and what's next, but just enjoying the moment for what it is, living in the present, etc. That would be the thing that I would say, what I would take away.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Nice. So, two more questions. What did you do just before joining us on the podcast?
I was prepping for the podcast. But no, actually earlier today. So typically on Thursdays, we have like our investment committee meeting. So I actually had a deal that I was presenting to our team. So that's what I pretty much spent most of my day doing.
Nice, nice. And what are you going to do next after the podcast?
Yeah, I'm actually going on up to Georgia Tech's campus right after this to speak on like a fintech panel. So I'll be kind of representing like kind of Coinbase Ventures, talking about like some of the latest and greatest things that are happening in the crypto industry.
That's awesome. Well, good luck with that, and I'm sure the young minds will be very happy to hear it. We always like
Thank
to
you.
finish with a bonus question, and so being a sneakerhead, and now we have a sneakerhead on here, gotta ask the question: what do you think is the best drop of all time?
The best drop of all time. Chicago AJ1s, man. Like that's like that it's like you just can't, that's just the classic. It's the OG sneaker, especially if you get your hands on like the 85s, the originals, right? It's like it's the classic. Every time they re-release it, I'm gonna buy a pair. But yeah, those are the classic, and I would say that's like the well-respected pair in the sneaker industry.
Got it. Well, everybody, you heard it here first. If you can get your hands on a pair of that, find a way.
Let's do it.
JK, this has been so much fun, my friend. Where can listeners go to learn more about you and what's up with Coinbase Ventures?
Yeah, so you can definitely follow us on Twitter. So like our at CB Ventures account on Twitter. You can follow myself as well, where I'm posting a lot of like our latest thesis content. So at Jonathan King VC. And then lastly, you can follow the Coinbase Ventures newsletter on Paragraph as well.
Thanks so much for sharing this show with us today. This was super insightful. Loved having you on.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
We've reached the outer limit at the edge of show for today. Thanks for exploring with us. We have room for more adventurers on our starship, so invite your friends and cool strangers to join our journey. If you're among the hundreds of thousands following us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or watching us on Myco or YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, rate us, and make an awesome comment too. And don't forget to pass this episode along to a friend or two who would benefit from it. Doubling back to again, recommend checking out myco.io, where you can watch The Edge of Show and earn for your time and attention. That's myco.io. Don't forget to visit theedgeofshow.com. The is part of the domain name, where you can learn more about collaborating with us and also subscribe to the Edge of Weekly newsletter for the latest Web3 news, events, and show drops. In addition, connect with us on all major social platforms by searching for The Edge of Show. Join the exciting conversations happening online. Lastly, be sure to tune in next time for more great Web3 and AI content. Until then, keep pushing the boundaries. Thanks again for hanging out with us today. The views and opinions expressed on The Edge of Show reflect solely those views and opinions of the show host and its guests. Please make sure to do your own research. Our show is not financial advice. You understand that you are using any and all information on or through this podcast at your own risk. Whenever making financial decisions, we recommend doing your own research and talking to your accountant for financial advice. From time to time, we may feature sponsored content on the show for which we receive value, and we may share links for which we receive a commission if you make a purchase through one of these links. Refer to our website, www.edgeofnft.com, for our full disclaimer, terms and conditions, and privacy policy.